Joining us today is Janelle Molony. She is the author of Unadoptable, Faith Beyond Foster Care. Welcome. So glad that you're here.
Hi, Bridget. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Fantastic. So I want to just dive right in because there's a lot of great information in here for parents that are potential parents, people that are about to adopt. Maybe they've already adopted and they're starting this process over again and they're doing it in a different way this time. But tell me about when you started, or when starting the foster to adopt process, what was something unexpected that you ran into?
Oh, so when we started, we had all these ideas and expectations from ourselves as parents.
Right.
We thought, oh, we could probably handle this. We could probably handle that. Little things like, oh, if the child has ADD. Okay, yeah, everyone has a little ADD. So my husband and I had a preconceived notion of what we believed we could do as parents. And this actually was different than what the professionals understood we would be able to handle. And by that I mean the social workers and the adoption agency that were involved. And they do their work. They've seen this happen a million times. They've seen families succeed. They've seen families fail. And they dug into our personal lives in so many uncomfortable ways. They can see the writing on the wall. But I really didn't like that. I had a lot of conflict involved in the process where they would say, I understand you just said yes to this child's profile, but there's something beyond what you've seen in this profile. There's a little bit more reading between the lines, and I really don't think that this is a good fit. And then we'd respond with, well, we think it'd be fine. But they really do know more than me. There is that initial gut reaction. There is that primal parenting yes urge. But we needed to remember and keep perspective that the pros are the pros for a reason, and they don't want us to fail. They truly do want us to succeed. So we did learn that in order to make this a very successful fostering process, happy and healthy fostering, communication and everything, we needed to have a team involved. It needed to be a team effort. It was never us versus them, although many, many times I made the mistake of thinking that way. And so I would just really caution people to just respect the experts in the fields that they're in. There's a lot of negative publicity out there and all the worst case scenarios and people slamming this way and that way. And it doesn't really have to be that negative. So that was something I was not quite ready for, to say yes and then be immediately told no.
Well, I think people kind of think in their minds, a lot of families come to us and they'll say, it's almost like that teacher-student kind of paradigm where they feel like, oh, I'm going to fail the test. It's like they fear them, but they also want them to be their best friend. And they get to the struggles and the teacher's trying to explain to them and you don't know what you don't know. And so they come to us and they're like, oh, can I pass the home study? And they ask us questions that really have nothing to do with the home study. A lot of times they need to they want to know if they need a bigger house or if they need a decorator, or can they adopt if they live in an apartment. And we're like, we're on another level here. Let's have this conversation. We'll talk about spacing, but let's have this conversation about the real things that you're about to dive into and experience. Tell me, who do you wish that you had in your life from the start of this journey?
Well, you just touched on this a little bit. I really wish that I had a mentor. And by mentor, I don't mean a friend. And I don't mean someone to go with me in the process at the same time as me. Because if you imagine we're all drowning, I'm not going to cling to the person next to me that's drowning. We're just both going to drown faster. So I needed a coach or a mentor or a visionary who has been through the same race. It is a race a little bit. And they can see the pitfalls, they can see the hurdles that I'm going to jump over, and they can encourage me along the way without infusing their hurts or their judgments on my situation. So maybe
Own
they've been
personal
through a
bias.
situation where special needs or yes, absolutely. We don't want those to be in conflict. So they can remove themselves and just say, I've been through that and it was hard, and here's an idea, not, well, when I was in your shoes. None of that. Just open, considerate, but doesn't hold back. I needed someone who did not hold back from the nitty-gritties, was not, oh, everything will be sunshine and rainbows when you're done. No. But also not someone who is doom and gloom, because there
Right.
are so many doom and gloom people. So I just needed someone to be real. And that is exactly what I did in my book. I really pushed to be honest and fair. So I don't doom and gloom in the book, but I am gritty and hopeful. And I say, this is awesome and awful at the same time. And I'm not going to shy away from that in the story.
Right. Well, we try to surround the people that come to Adoption Discovery with resources that give them exactly what you just described, the real nitty gritty. And we always say, I say it 100 times a day, you don't know what you don't know. You need to have somebody standing beside you with an outside perspective. We count ourselves as that support person, but we tell people when they come to our groups or they come and listen to our online courses, we're like, have somebody, and we even let them do it for free. We're like, have your spouse or your support person, whoever that may be, because sometimes that's a friend at work, sometimes that's a mother, sometimes that's a relative, sometimes it's a neighbor, sometimes it's your spouse, but not always. And so we want to make sure that they've got that person that's kind of a little bit, 5 steps back, and they can say, have you thought about, so we're giving them the real information as far as the process goes. And some of the, here questions to ask, questions, things to consider, process that you must do, steps you must take. But it's always great to have somebody that is unbiased by your side, walking through this whole, it's because it's life changing. I mean, it really is. And the more books that you can read, the more people you can talk to, that's great. But we just want to make sure that you're not overwhelmed and you're getting real information. Like you said, the real deal. You know what I mean? Not the sunshine and rainbows. And
you make a really good point. I wanted to highlight this because a lot of people will behave a certain way if the social worker or caseworker, or even if it's the adoption support person that really they're not going to get involved and mess things up. People are afraid of caseworkers. Don't tell them this. They'll change the plan. Yeah. But you need someone who can observe you really being you and maybe give that perspective of, hey, your child had a tantrum and I noticed that really stressed you out, because you're not going to do those things around certain people. You become very protective, very guarded. You start going, oh yeah, this, you just come up with all of these protective environments. So you need someone who can witness and give you direct feedback on what they actually see.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tell me something that helped you through the process with the big emotions, with the weight that was involved in your adoption.
The very best thing that I did was to start writing down my thoughts. And I had a journal. And it wasn't like today it was, this is taking beep forever. I really did make it raw and original and ugly, and no one should ever read this. But my big emotions had to have an outlet. And I think maybe they underestimate how big things can become, because this child is going through an unraveling in your home, and you are also going through an unraveling in your home, and you're going to have thoughts you never thought you would have.
Right.
And they're going to be shocking and potentially scary, and you would never want to say them, not even to your spouse.
Right.
There's going to be some major gut checks in that. And so being able to externally be productive and produce the fantasies, get them out of your head, was very therapeutic. There's all sorts of evidence. Writing is therapeutic. And so you need a safe space. I had a place where I could write that my spouse will never see it. No one's going to check my grammar. No one's going to be offended by the language. I could cry all over it. I could throw it. And it was just safe. And I don't mean I don't mean to diminish the power of prayer or internal meditation or those other internal mechanisms that help us to cope, but you got to get it out. You really have to get it out. Otherwise, it keeps living in our heads.
I totally agree. Well, so we have a journal that is kind of just an extra page in our workbook, and we encourage people to kind of chronicle their process. But in our journal, it's not all, roses, but we always say that at some point you could actually give that to your child when they're in their 40s or in their 30s and they're raising their own children.
An edited version.
Oh, come on. If they're 35, they're probably like, yes, she felt exactly the same way I did. I'm not the only one. So, yeah, I totally get it. If not, you might want to burn that. If you really don't want to, you might want to go ahead and burn that. No, but I do agree. I think you've got to find your outlet. You've got to find some way. It may be journaling for you. It may be something else for someone else. But you definitely have to have that outlet to get you through this process. I totally agree.
Right. Funny story on that. I was just talking to someone about how my son and I partner wrote the book, where he actually adds his own commentary. It truly is his words, and I wrestled with, Yep, I put it in. Some of it's a little intense.
How old was he when he was writing?
This was just last year, so he's 11.
Okay.
So he's very preteen, very snarky, all of those things that we're still dealing with. But it was 5 years after the adoption. So we had him an additional 6 months prior to that as well. Mm-hmm. And he had to come to a place of understanding, Mom, I didn't realize how hard it was. I didn't realize that while I was in this room, you were in that room doing these things.
Yeah.
I just thought it was, he thinks we're these fun people that keep visiting, and he had no idea that we were having these meetings and crying and filling out forms and all of these difficult things. So it was very eye-opening, and there were some difficult conversations that occurred out of learning, Mom had to go through some stuff, and it was not easy, and it was not comfortable. And I don't know, maybe in retrospect, I think it would be better if he had not learned that until he was much older and much more mature, because there is some guarding I want to do. However, it's all out of the bag now. Wow.
Well, sometimes we have to give 10 and 11-year-olds a little bit more credit, especially these days. They're exposed to so much, they see so much. But to me, why shouldn't it be their own personal family stuff? Like, to me, you should have a front row seat to that. And then the rest of the world, you can figure out how they live their lives. But it's life, it's just life. And that's something that I think is important for our kids to know. It's like, it's not all roses and unicorns for us either, even though sometimes we make it look that way,